Hi there. Welcome to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 146. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr brothers, and, mind you, also the youngest.
That's right. Jody, in case people are curious and maybe don't know, Jody is 7 minutes younger than me, and Jeff's 4 years older than us.
You'd never know. Jeff looks the youngest.
And
but
we often get the question, who's the oldest?
Who's the oldest?
Yes. Are you older or are you younger?
Yes. Which one are
Sometimes
you?
people can tell by my looks and my age.
Mm-hmm.
That's a giveaway that I'm older, I think.
Other times it's personality.
Personality,
Yeah,
I think I'm younger.
I know.
Because I have the fountain of youth style of
a persona.
Yeah.
Well, we
okay, enough
have,
about
on
us.
that note.
Enough about us.
Right. So we have an extraordinary guest, someone I've known for 15 years, started out through, at the Village of Hope, helping people overcome addictions. Sue Ellen English, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So pleased to have you. And tell us about a new organization that you're part of, connected with a longtime experienced organization as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, actually sort of bouncing off the experience that we had together at Village of Hope for many, many years. And a little on that, Jack, I immigrated here when I was 19 years old, and my family's business did very well. And we really did want to give back to charities.
Yes.
So one of the things that I realized very early was that I really didn't know anything socially about Canada. What were its needs? Where was the need that we could actually make a difference? And that actually is how I got to understanding the Village of Hope, looking at addictions, mental health, the prison system, and volunteered there many years. But then realized that a lot of these people were actually broken children that had grown up into adults. Mm-hmm. And so many years later, here I am again, really wanting to look at root causes and make a difference in my community, and had to ask myself, kind of, how do I want to take my last shot as a career? And I realized I want to be a difference maker. Mm-hmm. I really do. That's what I want my legacy to be. So with that, I saw the opportunity to work with STARS Children's Home as an executive director, and I said, why not give it a shot?
Yes.
So here I am today, and the STARS Children's Home is a new organization, but we're looking to set this up for children ages 0 to 8 who are in situations where they're suffering from abuse and maltreatment. Mm-hmm. There are quite a few services. I don't know that there's enough, but there are quite a few services more for youth in our community. But it's widely acknowledged that there is not the needed support for babies and children who often don't have enough of a voice to tell us that they need that support. And so they go unnoticed.
So this would be, so there's nothing in its kind in New Brunswick right now dedicated for children only from birth to 8 years old. So this is a new home. It's not, you don't have it opened yet though, do you?
No, we don't.
Okay.
So we're like 1 year in, and it's actually a lot of work because it's a new way of approaching the issue. So there would be group homes for sure in New Brunswick. There are obviously foster families, but this is much more of a therapeutic approach.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So where we would be looking at their psychological needs, we'd be looking at their medical needs, and we'd be bringing the stakeholders together in a way that we can address the child holistically and not just look at the actions and the reactions, or you might say the behaviors, but go to a deeper level and really see if we could get to the root issues with children that are suffering with serious behavioral issues.
And trauma, a lot of it stems, as you mentioned, is trauma. What are some of the statistics of how many children in New Brunswick face even childhood trauma?
Yeah, it's actually alarming,
quite high, isn't
to be
it?
honest.
Something like 20.
So if we're looking at Canadian children, and we're talking adverse childhood experiences, of which there can be sexual abuse, there can be physical abuse. There's many ways in which a child is traumatized, but upwards of 50% of children under the age of 15 have indicated that they've experienced traumas in our community. So it's like a serious issue.
And as you mentioned, starting a lot through your experience at Village of Hope, which would be adults, a lot of those experiences that we hear from graduations and things like that, or even in other organizations, but start as very young in childhood can. And that trauma then results in addiction, mental health, and things like that. So you're trying to break the cycle a lot sooner.
Yes, it very much so. And the other unrecognized thing is that when there is a relational deficit, or you might say neglect is one of the biggest issues that we have in terms of maltreatment. It's what's not done for children. And in talking with even teachers in our community, they would say that with the children they work with, that would be one of the single biggest issues they see is neglect. And you have to acknowledge, we have to acknowledge that, there's the effects of COVID. Our children, like I have a 9-year-old, it was kindergarten when COVID happened. How do you put a kindergartner, especially if they have extra needs, into online schooling? It created a larger gap with a social gap that already existed
right.
in the age of electronics, in the age of a smaller family unit. In fact, the density in relationships is like less than a third of what it used to be. And EQ and how we interact, how we buffer hardships, that happens in the presence of solid relationships. So for our children that have experienced adversity, when there isn't sufficient relational connection, it's like doubling the effects for those children.
Is there like a gap in, like, this sounds like it would be child protection, the traditional child protection monitoring of government. Is there a gap? Is what's the need? Is it these are growing? We hear about the pressures of child protection and trying to step in and help or separate children from their parents. Or negative situations, but are you hearing it's getting worse?
And what's sad is you sit and talk with a table, as I did in February, of social workers, and they really do care about their work.
Yeah.
They abundantly care about the people they're working with, but they're short on resources, whether it's time or caseload. It's really crisis management from what I'm hearing. Now, obviously, that's not statistics, but just through anecdotes that you hear on the front lines. And they acknowledge, too, that it is the babies that are being affected because babies are seen as needing to stay the longest with their mothers, for example. They may be being nursed or that kind of thing. But sometimes the children that are removed from the home have actually become the step-in caregiver for that child, say a 4-year-old, because the mother has addictions or mental health issues, which is another very, very large issue.
Yes, it stems from that.
So it's kind of sad to see because people that go into this field of social work generally are the ones that care about these things, but I think there's burnout issues as well, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah. It's been reported, the Child and Youth Advocate, it's in media, the child protection reports or Youth in Care Network. And for instance, do we have less foster families? Is that a problem that we're seeing as a result?
I don't know if we're having less foster families.
Or not enough to keep up with.
But the other issue is that some of the children's needs, they're not ready to go into the foster family setting. So, and this is where we do actually see the needs gap, that there's, even for a foster parent to be successful, there will need to be some level of stabilization and integration. So to be able to even provide that support ahead of a child going into foster care would be setting our families up for more success, that child could be fully evaluated, and the step-parent or the foster parent have more awareness of a plan of how we're going to work with that.
And so that's the goal of the STARS Children's Home, is to have those 0 to 8s in a setting where they can have their needs met before they go to the foster home. Because, I mean, for people listening at home, so 0 to 8s now are basically in the same foster home or in the same home setting with other age groups older than them.
Yes, I believe
right?
so.
So your goal here is to get a 0 to 8 group of
Right, and then
specialization for those children, so they can get that special attention and those needs met before they get transitioned either to foster home or back home.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then to provide, after that initial period, to provide support to the family or the caregivers.
Right.
So that they don't
So the
feel
support
alone
follows
in
them.
that, yes. And that there can be some continuity for the behalf of the child.
So really a lack as well of coordinated and integrated therapeutic intervention services for children.
Yes,
This is helping
that
that
is
need.
correct.
And the Band-Aid solution seems to be that some children, if there's no foster care home, which even then doesn't give the therapeutic, the foster family would still have to find the specialists and the the interventions. But further than that, some children are being referred, as Jeff said, to group homes that are for adults. Or for youth is what I've heard.
Adolescents.
Probably youth would
adolescents
make
and
sense,
youth.
yeah.
So in New Brunswick, you're saying really there has never been, or we don't have currently a 0 to 8-year-old kind of home or therapeutic home, a group home, if you want to call it. That's what they're generally referred to, and this would help fill that gap.
Yes, it would. And I think of it this way. In many ways, it would be like triaging before you go into an area of specialty, that there would be an opportunity to triage the child's needs and really identify precisely what is needed to set that family unit and child up for success.
Speaking of that, STARS, I know whether you want to go into that right now, but STARS is an acronym. That it means something to your organization, obviously, and
It does.
And maybe you want to still talk about the gap, Jack. But I just thought you talked about stabilize, and I believe that's what the S
That's what
stands
the
for.
S is. Yes.
So I thought it was a good tie-in to say, what does the S stand for? Stabilize. You
That's
had
right,
mentioned
stabilization.
that you needed some place to have a stabilization.
Yes, and our hope is that the place, we have 2 or 3 options that we're looking at this point, but we do think that incorporating nature is very important for the children. It's just so calming. So in that stabilization place, creating an environment that's calming and being mindful not to have things that could re-trigger the children. Even things like, a harmless show, but we don't know what in the subconscious that would create. So creating those neutral, safe spaces is really very important. And then T is for trauma integrated. And
What's the difference?
It's very important that in all the work we do, considering the child's trauma is at the heart of what we do. It's not sort of off on the side, but it's at the heart of it, what we do, whether, as I just stated, whether it be from the environments that we choose, being conscious of the way that we provide food for those children, the safe spaces, considering trauma as at the heart of what we do, not peripheral to it, is going to be essential for the well-being of these children.
And what's the difference between trauma-informed and trauma-integrated? Because we do hear often more and more about being trauma-informed, and a lot of places and schools aren't even trauma-informed yet. But and maybe we don't need to get into that right now.
No, it's okay, because I'm the same kind of person you are. I actually took this and was like, what's the exact definition? Because you have trauma-informed, you have trauma-integrated.
Yeah, and I see in some of your materials you had some.
So really what we've come up with as sort of a working definition, if I can say it that way, so we know, like, we're speaking the same language, it's to understand how trauma affects people and responding by integrating that knowledge into practices while providing seamless care that addresses the whole person's health needs. So it's both the trauma-informed, but then integrating that into every aspect of care, i.e. physical health, mental health, et cetera, the environment.
So it's good to know about it as the informed part, but you have to integrate it in all of your interventions and your
Holistic approach.
Yeah.
And that's the integrated part.
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I was actually looking for, because you're a big component of this, of course, is trauma. So I was looking at a quote that I put on Facebook, and Dr. Gabor Mate has a quote, and I put it on Facebook, and it received a lot of action and comments and likes. And he says, don't ask why. In this case, he says addiction, but you could say mental health or things like that. But don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. To understand people's pain, you have to understand their lives. In other words, addiction is a response to trauma. it's just exactly
It's
as
so
you mentioned.
true.
Trauma has to be should be integrated, because that's a key component, a stamp on that person's life
100%. Yeah.
that has to be integrated. So
And Dr. Bruce Perry says, what happened to you? So we so often behavior intervention would say, why are you behaving that way? But if we can remain open-minded and curious as we see people and ask the question, what happened to you? It allows us to see that person, not just the action that's there. So that would answer to the trauma integrated, I think,
Right.
Jody.
Yeah, no, that was a great description and explanation. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And then the A, so STA, is assessments. So this would be the ability for multiple professions to assess in their area, but for their assessments to help inform each other's body of knowledge. And key to that is the fact that legislation has recently changed around the rights of the child here in New Brunswick. Actually, in 2024, like that recently, after 40 years, the legislation has changed, which allows us to put the care and provision of the child at the heart of what we're doing. And it opens up more possibilities for collaboration. So I think that is key. And as I said, for timing, this is key for it to come together, because you're not going to be successful without that sharing. And yet, you have to say, is this in the best interest of the child?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
for
brings
sure.
those to light. And then, let's go down some of
Yeah, so then we have R is resources. And this would be providing resources not just for the children, but to follow the children back into the community. Because we recognize that for a child to be successful, we have to build into the caregiver community of that child. So that might not be parents. It depends who their support group is, but to provide support for them. This could be something as simple as parenting skills. That's typically learned. We think it's an innate skill. Actually, I think we don't think about it. We assume you have a child, you know how to parent.
Yeah.
But why? Like any one of us who's had kids, like each one of them needs a different setup. Then you get a child with some level of special needs or disability. There's not a manual for that. There should be no stigma attached to taking parenting courses, to providing resources in the community, to understanding that this isn't just prescriptive, but it needs to also be taught to be reflective in community.
Yeah,
And then our last one is services, which really ties in very closely to resources and services. So I think that kind of covers it.
So that's the STARS Children Home 0 to 8. You're part of the organization, not only part of it, but you're the executive director with a variety of board members, also linked to the New Homes organization that has a longstanding connection and relationship here in New Brunswick as well.
With New Life,
New
yes.
Life, thank you
New
very
Life
much.
Options.
Yes, thanks.
That is longstanding
Yeah.
and also has 200 employees and was originally set up for people with some level of disability. Interestingly, and again, this is like very people-centered work, and on the model that every moment has potential. And actually, that's really life-changing. For me, that has made me realize that moments matter with the people I interact with. I can literally affect or impact a person's day in a moment. Taking that moment, we've become so distracted, and as a people, tend to miss moments, right? And so taking that, I've seen some beautiful, beautiful things. Like there's a group of men, I would say they're probably in their 30s, but every last Friday of the month, they, with their carers, make packed lunches and they take them out to the street people, out on the streets. And they're like something like the Magical Dragons group, but they're so proud of their work. And you're seeing those moments that they have such value as the people they are right there. And so that has been recognized with social development, and more, while it wasn't our original intent, children have been sent to the New Life homes and received this, trauma integrated care. But these homes are not set up to give the level of care that we recognize is needed. And so really this needs gap has become self-evident based on the requests of social development, but also on the changes in legislation, the fact that public health is also recognizing this and requesting proposals. So I feel like it's quite a collision of various aspects that we can't really ignore anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's excellent. Mm-hmm. So that's the end of our first segment with Sue Ellen English. We're having a wonderful discussion about the new organization that she's the executive director of, STARS, which is for a children's home where healing begins for children. So when we come back after this commercial break, we're going to talk more about the needs, the gaps in the needs, the costs associated with it, and the future look of what STARS looks like or should or could look like here in the province of New Brunswick. We'll be right back.
Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 146. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody. Welcome to our show. We have Sue English, who's here from STARS Home. And we're really appreciative that you're joining us, Sue Ellen. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. You're starting the STARS Children's Home 0 to 8, but probably about a year in the making, you said, and you're the executive director. Their home isn't physically available yet, but there's a lot of great things working in the works, I guess. So.
Yes, of course, there's a lot of infrastructure to set up, but we do look forward to opening this fall.
Oh, excellent. So this fall.
And you have proposals with government, so you're anticipating to continue those discussions, I guess, with the provincial government. We talked earlier about the needs and the gaps and increased trauma and the impact on, I guess, all of us as a society. Some of those statistics are pretty daunting, and it appears that it's getting worse. How do you not say, geez, is the system broken? Is the current system broken?
I think it is being recognized. So in March, Public Health actually did ask for request for proposal around child maltreatment. So it is being recognized at a federal level. In fact, they're committing $25 million to this. Wow. So I do think it has gotten to the point where we have to acknowledge it.
And I'm not sure, but that could have a great tie-in. That research component of maltreatment could have a great tie-in to the STARS Home here in New Brunswick.
Yes, and that is our hope. Obviously, the program will go on regardless, but we have put in a proposal for this, and we will know this fall sometime whether we win a bid, but we sure did put the work in to the model and create a model that we could measure and look for outcomes over a 5-year period. So I look forward to that.
Now, there's people out there, myself included, would be very concerned that we've not done group homes for children in age 0 to 8 in New Brunswick. This is a new initiative. The research, I think, would help inform that. And how many, what was I going to ask about that? How many children, I guess, at the home.
So yes, this will be a 12-bed.
Sorry. Yeah.
And this would include cribs. So the goal would be to have 4 cribs and 8 beds. But of course, we need to have the ability to flex because you never can say for sure that's the ratio of the need at that moment.
Right.
And so the interesting thing is it's not actually a group home. It's hard to find a definition because it's not a daycare. It's not a group home. It's really a place where in the short term we can provide that initial, might I say, triaging of these children's needs in a very comprehensive way. So it would look at all aspects, their psychiatric needs, their education needs, nutritional needs, etc.
And that was what my train of thought was. It's actually not the traditional kind of group home in the fact that this is meant to be a 90-day temporary, up to 90-day temporary stopping point. A temporary stopping point. The children and the family's already in crisis, well beyond crisis, obviously. They haven't been able to get services or don't know what to do, and removing into a safe temporary spot. And
exactly.
I guess that's the point I would get to is that, we've not done this in New Brunswick, but this is will be hopefully a temporary until then. From there, after the 90 days, where do the children go?
Yes, so they would go back to either their family, if that was deemed safe for them, or their foster home.
Right.
In some cases, they would have to go on to another group home setting if they weren't foster homes available that were suited to their needs.
And there are no other really group home settings in New Brunswick for children ages 0 to 8?
To my knowledge, no. This is a very unique opportunity to serve a people group that's largely not served in this way. As I said, there are quite a few services for youth, and it's a very recognized need. But we do believe if we can get ahead of this, over a period of time, we're going to see less need for the youth services because we're dealing with the issue when the children are small, and they're actually much more malleable at that point, and there's such rapid development in their brain at that point that you have the opportunity to make more of an impact at that stage.
Because you were saying earlier too, like I had the impression, maybe we don't have enough foster families, but maybe the better question is the foster families aren't equipped with the needs that are there with the children that are being presented with the trauma and the maltreatment. These are really complex situations.
They are very complex.
And there's really very little coordination and support that's being provided at the moment.
And sometimes the need is greater than what the family has the capacity to give. So in that sense, it's bringing the child to a place where they can stabilize and then working with the family. In some cases, it could be that a child has had multiple foster placements and just not been successful.
Right. Yeah.
And they need more support. They haven't been successful in school. They haven't been successful at even to the point they can't go out in public. So we really are talking about the kids that over the top really do have needs that aren't met in those typical resources that are available in our community.
Well, when you look at the statistics, like they're staggering. So one of the stats that you have here that's all been sourced, they're statistics that you were able to compile that are all public. But one of the stats is 7.5% of all New Brunswick children have been placed out of home care in 2022. 7.5% of all children. That's
I was
staggering.
shocked with that.
Yeah.
And that was 2 years ago. That's the most recent stat that I could find. But I mean,
Wow.
coming
That's-
close to 10% of our children not even living with their families.
And then another one is
That's amazing.
39%. There's been a 39% increase in family violence from 2009 to 2021. Reported family violence, I should say. It's increased by 39% in New Brunswick. That's huge. Yeah.
Exactly.
And 25% of children in split families, a combination of, like you said, maybe not as much consistent sometimes with grandparents, which are great, but that has an impact on trauma as well. You mentioned in here a death of a parent sometimes.
Yes.
That's traumatic. That's
Big time traumatic, yes.
That separation anxiety. I know in
with incarcerated parents,
incarceration,
Close to 5%
jails,
separation anxiety,
and it's
as well.
perpetual, right? So if the parents have been in jail or they have mental health issues, addiction issues, the incarceration separation.
It's often intergenerational, which is also a reason why it's very important that we work to not just look at the child's needs, but look to their support group and what is the need of their group.
Nice guess. Makes
Now,
sense.
you've been talking about making partnerships. So have you been meeting with agencies like the school system, the healthcare system, public health, different agencies, family services, counseling
social
service,
workers.
so, different resource centers?
Yeah, we have spent months making these connections in the community, and there are so many good people out there all trying to make a difference. But there's exhaustion in the case. You can see it with social workers. Still the fire's there. You can see when they start to tell about the stories of their people that they genuinely care. So you can see that. Yes, we have had the opportunity to meet with child psychiatrists and are working on a partnership there, which is probably one of the most exciting things that we have going. Wonderful people. We're meeting with the head of pediatrics as well. We have that in just a few days. So in order for this to become a reality, we do need to have all the stakeholders at the table, or it will become just another group home, which is not what is needed here.
No.
We need a specialized service that's integrated.
Well, I'm so pleased that that's part of the layer is network and stakeholder relations, and everyone has a lot of great people, as you mentioned, in the province. But typically, guys, I attended a meeting a couple of years ago in a different department. all the stakeholders said, oh, we need to continue this and keep building, but government just for some reason they don't want stakeholders to work together. I'm not sure why, if it's the system, no one in particular, don't want to criticize anyone. It just seems to be the system, but it's so refreshing again to see your organization, see the value of stakeholder relations. And if the government is going to do it, then do it amongst ourselves as New Brunswickers to work together and connect together.
Yes, and also that includes the government. They're a huge part of this.
Yes.
And what I have said, because I have met with the Green Party, I've met with also with both sides, the Liberal and the Conservative.
Yeah.
But at this point, it becomes about the children and the people we're called to serve. We're not a political agenda. And I gladly work with each and all of them, anyone who will advocate for the children and their rights, because governments come, they turn, they come over. We don't want to be that sort of political pawn. At the end of the day, the children's needs will remain, and I think it is a responsibility on our part to stay faithful in advocating for them.
Well, and you certainly, one of your statistics here, because you mentioned the federal government with the proposal that you submitted, $25 million. But if you look at the economic cost of child abuse / trauma, all of that, in 2025 alone, it's estimated that it'll be $25 billion in Canada, the economic cost. That's a staggering number, $25 billion. That's, taxpayers' dollars. It's families being ripped apart, things like that. But there's such a huge cost benefit of putting resources on the front end, as you say, in the children, from birth to 8 years old.
Yeah. So the thing is that we need to make the connection between the fact that child abuse does actually, when undealt with, deal with increased medical costs. For example, a person who's had 3 adverse childhood experiences is medically shown to have a higher risk of heart failure than someone who smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Yet we do campaigns around, the issues for some of these things like cigarette smoke and lung cancer. But we need to start campaigning for these issues and raise awareness at this level that this is not okay. This trauma actually is shown to create long-term, not just mental health burden, but physical health burdens. And you can see this in some of the material I provided to you guys. But I think the first thing is we do need to be speaking about this just the same way. It took somebody to start it when it came to cancer, when it came to other things. Someone had to start that conversation.
Yeah. What's so frustrating is having to remove the child from the family situation in the first place to a temporary home of 12, 11 other children between the ages of 0 and 8, when sometimes it's just so frustrating because, government keeps cutting services, or we don't keep up on rent subsidy, or don't keep up on food subsidy. The cost of everything goes up. The pressures of families trying to get support services as it is from as a family or a foster family even, or a real a family can't get into the psychiatrist, can't get a family doctor sometimes, and so then we have to have a coordinated service over here with the group, the home. I guess it's frustrating, but I guess it's a stopgap measure to help. I guess it's a stopgap measure to help a need that's there right now. And ideally, your team of network will work together to increase the services available to families before they even have to come to a home.
Absolutely.
That's the ideal goal.
Strengthening the family unit
the
should be the ultimate goal.
That's the ultimate goal.
Right.
And I can tell from you having that a passion for the why, a passion to help children, and a passion to fill those gaps that are there in our communities, and to try to tackle an aspect of it that needs to happen. There needs to be better coordination and integration of these support services.
Yes, and so this is why we actually set up as a charity, and we took that on. We did just get our status.
Oh, congratulations.
That was a big project,
Yes.
but we did think it was important to allow the community to help own this project, not just be like the community creates the issue and then we run to the government to solve it, and then we don't like the way they solve it. Listen, we corporately, as a country, we've gotten to the point that we've gotten. We need to acknowledge that And then we also need to put some skin in the game.
It's a shared responsibility.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that until we do come to that point of creating spaces where we can have shared responsibility, I don't think we're going to affect real change.
Yeah.
But part of this is education. So I think it needs to have stakeholders in the community step up, but also acknowledge the good work and the necessity of government in areas as well.
Right.
So we can't do it without them. They can't do it without us.
Absolutely.
And hopefully together we can make a difference.
And that's what I was really going to touch on is like, you can't do it without government and government can't do it without you. And it's so true. But this is such an investment in every government that known to man over time that we know that literacy rates are low. We know that Child Protective Services needs are going up. The judicial system is getting stretched a little bit. So, and even throughout the 2000s, we started talking about preventative medicine, health and wellness, and things like that. So this falls right in line. But it's just able to get government in its core to be able first catch up with the issue that are there, and then get ahead of that somehow and invest in the early stages. What's the investment needed so that we can get kids to be more successful? Less are being taken out of the home. The literacy rates start rising. The crime rates start coming down. But without organizations like yours and others, government won't be able to do it on their own.
Well, and
so there's just that partnership that's there. The money, obviously, the funding. Government has to be a big part of it because they are responsible for youth at risk. With the legislation, but having the community be involved with partnerships and funding is going to be a huge thing. And I think that's part of why, obviously, your charitable status, because when you put this home together, the house together, the facility together, the infrastructure, you're going to be raising some money, or you have been, and you're going to be looking to raise a lot more money.
We sure are, and that actually gets us back to you guys because you are going to help me with my fundraiser.
Oh, we are. We are.
I don't know if
We are.
Jody is, but at least 2 out of 3 of you are.
Well, that is going to be great because let's talk about that in the next segment of how we're going to help the Carr brothers and hopefully anyone watching on the CHCO channel throughout Rogers, Shaw, and Bell on our Facebook group. Anyone watching the Carr brothers, we're going to talk about in our next segment how we can help the Stars Children's Group Home and much more right after this on the Carr Brothers Show. Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 146. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the 3 Carr brothers.
We're very pleased to be joined with Sue Ellen English, who's the executive director of a new organization in Brunswick called Stars Children's Home. Temporarily for up to 90 days for children 0 to 8. And we've had a great discussion. And let's talk a little bit more about your mission, Sue Ellen, and some of the things that people can expect when the children's home is up and running, hopefully in the fall, as you mentioned.
Yes, so really our heart for this home is that it's going to be a place of healing for children ages 0 to 8. We mentioned this earlier in our segments, but this is a group that is often underserved in our community. So our first goal is to help the children heal. On their own, children can't do it. It's devastating, the impact of abuse on children, neglect, family violence, and they need the support to heal. So that would be the first goal of the home. Mm-hmm. The second one is to keep the children safe. Children, especially at this age, they really don't have much space for a voice. And this is where we are doing things like we are today, advocating and making known these issues. So being a voice for the children. Then last but not by any means least is to strengthen the family unit.
Right.
And the communities, because in the end, the communities owning the outcomes is essential to the success. So including them in that process.
Yeah, and it's essentially a home where a temporary place where children would be placed. There'd be a holistic approach, a stabilization, and then from there would be either placed back in the home with supports to the family, or in a foster home with supports, or maybe even another group home with supports as well. So that's the goal, is a temporary a setting, home-like setting for these children to stabilize and then to be able to help and heal.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, one of the stats I saw too is it says here that it's somewhere between 30 and 50% of children are suffering from maltreatment and adverse experiences as well, and that's I just caught that one. That's another staggering statistic.
Yeah.
So the need is very, very rampant, well known, and it's trying to find solutions, and that's what brought your heart to an organization that's been created called STARS Children's Home.
Yes, and I think we're at a good collision point, really,
Right.
because the federal government is recognizing this gap, calling for proposals. Provincially, we've gone through legislative changes and social development, which have set us up for more potential for collaborative working when it's at the best interest of the child. So I think there's many things pointing toward that we're recognizing as a country that this is a deep-rooted issue, and we have to face it. We have to find solutions, and we hope to be one of the players in this gap.
Anything else, guys?
Well, there's a lot here, and there's so many statistics and some of the work that you've done. You've pulled a lot of numbers together, and it's just to me, it's astounding of what has been recognized as some of a lot of the root causes, and it ties into mental health and addictions, abuse, and things like that. But the root causes, and then your focus on how do we get ahead of all of this and get to the front of the line to try to just steer away from, or to just try to stop some of the issues before they,
Progress even
affect a child until they can't be, healed, or it takes so much more to heal them and whatnot. So it's there's a lot of information here on what's been gathered, your terms of reference, and your goals of what you're trying to do. So it's just, for me, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, so the goal is...
But it's a lot. It's complex.
A lot, but you have to start like climbing a mountain, one foot in front of the other. First of all, you have to determine it's worth the climb.
Right.
Right? And I think my own experience and the experience of other people that I love has made me want to be a voice in my community for children. They really can't be their own voice in these situations. So it does take us making space for these conversations. And it has really surprised me, but I feel also a great amount of gratitude to have been trusted. As I share in communities, it's all around us. The adults themselves know it. It's just that it's very personal and also hard to talk about these things. But it's statistically 30 to 50% children, then we know there's about that many adults who have had some very unkind things happen in their lives.
Adverse experiences.
We do need to look for a pathway forward together, collaborating with the community and a shared ownership with government. And I think it's what it's going to take to bring it around.
Well, and I think just having you speak about it and educate people on the numbers and the possible whys is a big step in the right direction. Because many people understand, I think publicly, understand that there's mental health and addictions issues, alcoholism, drugs, or whatever. And I think every person in our society have been touched by it in some way, shape, or form, or have seen it, but we don't know why, or we don't stop long enough to understand why those things are happening. So to educate with a lot of these numbers is a key starting point, I think, is what I've come to realize myself, and just stop for a second and just take it in and understand in our busy lives, I guess.
And what I like about this presentation here is it will instigate and encourage discussion, and people will have questions, people have comments, people will have reactions, some people positive, some people with doubt, concerns, the model, the what. But it allows for that type of discussion to circle back to the why. The why is there's a lot of problems going on. We need government engaged. We need community engaged. We need to find these solutions. And if someone was interested to contact you either to help or to discuss the model or to participate or to potentially improve or partner, if there's connections where some other similar work is happening and they'd like to contact and be in contact with you, how would they do that?
Yes, certainly. So I think going to our website, because our contact information is there. So STARS Children's starschildren'shome.ca, and that is 2 S's, starschildren'shome.ca would be the best way.
Great spot,
and I've got an email there. The president has their email there. And actually, you know, to your point, Jody, I love that we can be challenged, because in the end, I'm not fighting for a model.
Right.
I'm not fighting to justify a system. It's the children that speak to us. It's their voice that needs to be heard. We need to be open that it might be this way or it might be that way that they're best served.
Yeah.
But that their needs are met is what matters, in a way that they can really have success and become the adults they need to be.
Yeah, and I really am impressed with you about that, because I came into the conversation, or came into this episode thinking, okay, what's our common ground? The common ground is there's a gap and there's a need, and there's children and families that are hurting. So how can we best work together to fill that gap? Obviously, child protection, social services are overwhelmed, communities are overwhelmed, families are overwhelmed, and to see a new organization step up and say that STARS wants to be part of this solution, then and being so open and welcome to hearing people's ideas, but also accepting the donations. Some people might be called to say, how can I help? And perhaps with their ideas of networking, but also with funding. But to share that comment, I think big congratulations to you in that leadership.
Thank you.
To provide that open, safe space for people to participate too.
I think that we stay safe when we stay mission-oriented, or keep the people we're called to serve at the center of all that we do. And that's what safeguards us. You know, when it becomes about our egos or wanting to prove something or be right, we're probably not going to stay as open as we should be to providing the best possible, because things evolve. They really do. Yeah. And we need to be able to be willing to move with it and continue to serve the people that we're called to serve. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great discussion, Sue Ellen. And let's talk about another. You mentioned some about fundraising. November 1st is a big gala that you're working on to have in Fredericton as awareness, but also fundraising. So tell us about that.
Well, I am excited, and if I get my way, you guys are going to help me with that. So yes, this is as much about raising awareness in our community. We are going to bring in some significant speakers. It will be a mixture of entertainment, but education as well. So we're hoping for 400 people to come to that. And the real theme here is we're calling on the community to help us get to opening the doors, which will happen this fall. Once we get to that point, we are calling on the government to step up, and hoping that there will be a fee for service. That's to be discussed in the coming weeks. We do have that on the agenda. But we would like to see this last through a community partnership and a shared ownership, because we think that is what will be the difference maker. So I would like to, my goal for this is $150,000. And I do believe that is doable. I've had some very cool conversations, even with the people who are going to be partaking in this, like some gifts in kind for providing the audio and sound. I was able to navigate that some of the farmers can help with some of the food needs. And that's actually another way that we're engaging the community, and it gives us a chance to share the story of these children. So I see each thing not just about the dollars, but the opportunities to share and be a voice. So I guess that's one of the next big things. As long as everything moves forward, we would expect to be open this fall.
And the gala is November the 1st.
It is at the Delta, in the big ballroom there. And we're going to have an auction. I actually have a live painting being done, and you guys are going to get me a pile of money through my auction. You're just going to bring the Carr brothers charm to it.
And tell us about the painting. It's a live, not only a live auction, but it's a live painting.
So the artist starts and finishes at that.
I may even have two, but for sure I have Alicia Nicholson coming, and she is so gifted to put emotion into a picture. Wow. And so this was actually Jack's idea. That's why he's excited about this. This is why. Okay. Yes. So she's going to come, and I've shared with her about STARS and said, like, what do you see? She's done beautiful paintings. So that will be auctioned off. I may have another artist there, but she had one that she did for the tiny home community across the river there, the 12 neighbors, and they auctioned that off. I think they did $8,000 for that, but it was just like, I couldn't look at that and not feel everything about community that said. It just pulled it right out of you. So I am looking forward. I have Laurel Williams, Core Dance. They're coming and putting dance and bringing the children in, which then engages a third generation there. So it's very intentional in the way we're going about this.
And what is your overall goal for the home to raise community funds? Do you have a goal overall that's needed?
I would say it's probably going to take us about $1.5 million to get to the starting line. So that would be including carrying the mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
That would be included with setting up like a fenced-in play area, all the bedrooms, a little bit of startup for wages, that kind of thing.
Right.
So part of that, I think, is going to come through. We are working with CBDC, so we'll see where that goes, but in good conversations there.
Okay.
And so some private investor as well. So I do see this as multi-approach, and it's coming. I'd say we're about halfway where we need to be.
Okay. That's fantastic. Well, that's great.
That is awesome. So we'll see how the summer goes and how that progresses before we get to November the 1st and the big gala and what happens then. So, Sue Ellen, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And explaining to our viewers and educating our viewers and ourselves on what the issues are and what the gaps are and how everybody can help and really what is the goal for this. And as we wrap up, I just want to take a second and read a little bit of a quote out of your mission statement here on one of the back pages right by your contact information. And it says, "Every star lights up the sky, so there is less darkness. Every child can be a star. It is our privilege to be able to help children have a brighter future."
Wonderful.
Because the children are our future.
They are our future.
We need them more than they know.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end it, is on that quote. And thank you so much, Sue
Thank
Ellen
you for
English.
having me. I appreciate that.
Great to have you, Executive Director of the Stars Children's Home. And you can find more information by logging on the World Wide Web, as they call it, as the starschildren'shome.ca. We're so pleased that you were able to join us on the Carr Brothers Show. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Sue Ellen,
very
as well.
much, all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all, too, for watching, and we'll see you next show.
Good night.